Welcome to DriveVice, a channel not about cars, but about driving and driving experiences. We're not going to be talking about sat-navs, pockets in the doors, where you're going to put your cup when you go to work. DriveVice is not about reviewing, it's about driving and experiencing the car with you. However, in this video we're going to look at whether it's worth it or not to repair a future classic that is not in good condition. An RX8 to be exact, plagued by rust. It's a matter of deciding whether it's worth it or not. There's quite a few elements to be taken into consideration, but hopefully I'm gonna help you out in working out if your car is worth fixing or not. RX8 are a future classic. They are the last car with a rotary engine on it. Not technically true, because Mazda has already released new rotaries as electricity generators, mile extender as they call them. For that reason, the RX8s then are on the map as some future rarities. They're not long-lasting cars, and given the incredibly unique climate that we're in the motor industry, they could really become the last of their kind. I want to specify I'm not a builder. This is not a video where we're going to show you how to rebuild an engine. First, we need to address what is good and what is bad about it. I was a kid that grew up with the absolute love of the Toyota Supra after watching Fast and Furious, like many other of my generation. As you grow up, you realize you're never gonna own a Supra, maybe some of you do, and new interests come in, and the RX8 just popped out of nowhere with these incredible looks, usability, not a race car, but an everyday usable sports car with absolutely 110% personality. And it went on my list. It went on, that's the car I need to have one day. When I moved to the UK and I realized how much more approachable the market was, I went for one. And I bought it with about 80,000 miles on it, and it was in surprisingly decent conditions. The engine hadn't been rebuilt and it was still pulling very decent compression numbers. Didn't seem to have any major problem, and it was just a joy. And the crazy thing is that I bought it for pennies. In Italy, that car would still be going for about 15,000 euros. And here I secured one with just over 2 grand, which was mad. It was my dream car and I had it for 2 grand. The following 7 years have been perfect, more or less. Well, because we all know, at least those of you who drive it, we really do know what the problems and the perks are of these cars. They drink like crazy, 250 miles per tank. I mean, it's a lorry kind of numbers. Constantly be worried about compression and how you turn it on and turn it off. And use the right oil and change the oil regularly, because otherwise you're pumping in dirt into the engine and all of these incredible things that I had no idea. Well, I kind of knew something about, but not to the extent and attention that you have to pay when you own one. Nice, huh? It wasn't too difficult to come to get used to the car, because if you do take care of it, it goes fine. I got to 113,000 miles without a rebuild, given that the first 80,000 were mine. Previous owners I've spoken to and nobody had done it. It was just a lucky one. Or really, the car was just very well looked after thoroughly. It has been great. As you can see, we've got some oil here. No, I'm not going to start that conversation. I'm joking. This is just there for show. Is a Mazda RX8 from 2006, 231 6 ports. It's absolutely riddled with rust. I don't know why. I'm sure some of you out there have had luckier experiences. This one just probably worth about 300 quid right now. Does it even make sense to fix such a polluting, old, rusty machine in a world where electric cars are taking over? I've put away about £5,000 to be spent on a car. I can either use it on a deposit on a new car, I could buy something second-hand just as a roundabout, or I could invest it on the RX8. How do I make that decision? I was going to work, using my RX8 as a daily driver as always, and a strange little sound started coming from the underneath when the revs would come down, and I just couldn't get my head around it. It didn't sound right. In the meantime, I would drive it as I usually do, redline it. So in doubt, I started doing some research, wondering what it was. I went for a cataclean, which is this kind of magic liquid that you pour into your petrol tank with about 15 liters of fuel left, and hoon it, push that foot down. So I've done the cataclean, I floored the car, and guess what? It got worse. I think I need a compression test. I think I need to see what's going on here. So I had a guy who kindly came around, plugged the car in, and turns out that the rear rotor was a 6.7 and the front rotor was a 5.2 on two faces and a 4.8 on one. It had happened. Compression was on its way down on that rotor. The car continued to drive. The noise is still there now. I haven't been using it much because of that. I know that when something starts to go wrong, it could go south very, very easily. I did not want that. So I just left the car on the drive for some time. And the MOT approached. As I was looking down on my drive, I could see a little brown patch on the floor by the sill. And I put my hand under the car and guess what? A hole. Brittly rust was starting to dig into the sill. I went down to my local garage and I asked for a pre-MOT, like a mock MOT. They did the emission test, which passed, and I didn't expect that. I was expecting that with 4.8 I would have had bad emissions. At which point the technician put the car on the lift and went, hold there, not a chance. Then myself in my naivety, what about this one? And my finger went straight to, now you got 3 holes to deal with. Anyhow, I wasn't going to pass the MOT. I had 1 month left on it, a funny sounding engine, 113,000 miles on it. What's the point? Let's just give up. Let's get a new car. So I immediately went and see what the alternatives were. The one that came up the most was the MX-5 and the GT86. The new MX-5 was phenomenal. What an engine, 184 horsepower, really balanced, really fun, lots of torque, but the engine felt deep and serious. I had not a single place where to put my phone, and actually I had to kind of drive slightly squat down because once I closed the roof, the car was too small for me. Therefore, the GT86 was next. I know on the back seats you can just about put a child, but it's still 4 seats. So we went and tried it, and I actually quite enjoyed the GT. Very harsh, a bit more of a track car than the RX8. I didn't expect that. In the meantime, prices of second-hand car became unapproachable. Why? Not sure, a pandemic or something happened, I don't remember. But cars were in demand and suddenly all the prices went up. There was no new cars coming in, everybody was jumping on second hands. We were talking about 22, 23, 25,000 pounds, and I couldn't justify that. Especially when Toyota announced the GR86 coming out at 30. That's going to be my next car, the GR. And I missed the first batch, but I did get into the second batch. Oh wait, but by then the prices went up. 0 APR finance that Toyota offered went out of the window and became a 9%. So the price of the car really at the end of the finance would be more like 37, 38,000. No go. There I am sitting in the street one day looking at my RX8. The MOT has gone out, rotting away. The stains on the floor are becoming bigger. I think it's time to have a rethink. I came to realize that I do have a sports car, it's right there. And with the 5 grand that I put away, I think I could get it back on the road. It's time to have a proper look at it, to see what's wrong and what needs doing. This is Roy, by the way, given by the registration OY R4 RX8. Roy. As we discussed, the main problem is the rust. This seal on this side is the worst bit, and somewhere over here he actually bent. Then there is phase 2, which is the engine. As you can see, I've already replaced the airbox with a cold air intake. It's not a fancy one, but it works, especially with my modification that I added here. This was a straight pipe. I've added a cut and placed a mesh in front of the MAF in order to normalize the air. And there's a cut there, that's new. Anyhow, the engine needs rebuilding. I've added some lines in terms of grounding because I had some electrical problem and that helped. Lots of cobwebs and some rat chewing around there. Over here I also managed to bend the sill by using the scissor jack that comes with the car, you know, the one that you put on the lip. I rolled it up, the car bent. So that's the biggest bit. Then this is from the last MOT that we did pass, but I got advisories, and one of them was worn and pitted disc brake, mostly at the back. This bit is all corroded. The pad is only actually really holding in the middle. The handbrake doesn't even lock anymore. The steering knuckle is corroded on both sides. The sump is leaking. The exhaust system is corroded. The rear lamps have got water infiltration, and the headlights are defective, and they mean faded by that. See the water in here? This gets damp all the time it rains, infiltration goes in. It's a problem that many RX8s have, and it's something to do with the seal, that seal between the plastic and the main body of the light. Once I actually found kind of a line of water, about a centimeter of water in there. So I made a tiny little hole here, there, and another one here. This is not a long-term solution, but for the time being it allowed the water to drain and some air to get in, and it's been a lot less ugly since then, probably a replacement. And same on the other side. Front lights are not just faded, but they're completely gross, and I can see some moisture there too. I've done them before, I polished them and got them back to new. They looked incredible, and then I even put a UV protection on it, but it didn't last very long, about a couple of years. The paintwork, that would be phase 3 if it ever happens. The paintwork is suddenly started to go really bad. On the bonnet we can see bubbles and some paint already came off. The gloss is peeling off, and here on the wing there's some discoloring over there. We have scratches, little dents, car park trauma. Then this has been me, I think, by hitting the door on the wall. More scratches. Some of the paint is coming off of the plastics. Maybe it's hard to see in this light, but the boot panel is actually looking a bit more faded than the rest of the body. More bubbling and rust here on the boot. Strange line, I think it's something coming from the rust, but it's kind of stained the paint. This is one of the saddest bits. Look at this paint that came off of the back door. This door is aluminium rather than steel, and yet look at the corrosion, and even here a few bubbles there. Right here under this we have some rust, much worse on the other side. Look at this. And then there is the interiors, which is not too bad. The leather here has perished. I've seen many of you having this one, cracks on the leathery plastic in front of the passenger seat. The steering wheel is in good order, still feeling well. The very driver's seat is starting to crack up a bit. And that's about it. And as you can see, there's quite a few things I want to do. Oh, and the wheel restoration. The wheels are really stained and horrible. They need acid dip and repaint, or even replacing, we'll see. I'm not sure with what money, but quite a few things going against Roy. That's a list of reasons for not fixing it. Check this out.
Now I'm really curious about what you're thinking right now. You've seen the car, you know its mileage, you know its story. Tell me what to do. Go down in those comments and write, you are insane, just bin it. Or no, you should totally fix it. Or maybe you're gonna say, just buy another one. There's so many out there. Well, I did think about that, and I kept looking. Like this one, a 2007 blue 231 for $3,000. And it looked great, but then you read and you find out the MOT is about to expire and they want to sell it before then, so you're not sure what to do. And I promise you, for 6 months looking at RX8, I didn't find one that just convinced me. One major factor is something that some of you might think I'm crazy about, but it's the tax bracket. There are two types of RX8s, those before March 2006 and those after. And the difference is what road tax you're going to pay. When I bought my RX8, the road tax was about $275 if I don't remember wrong, while those after March 2006, they were already looking at almost double the amount. My RX8 is currently £395, and those after 2006 are close to 700. What's stopping that numbers to go farther up? The government wants to get rid of these polluting machines, and that number will go up. So for me, it was really important to get a road tax that was
affordable. So the hard line was to get a low tax bracket, and I couldn't find it. There were many decent RX8s out there, and they all came with a higher road tax, and I did not want to do that. So there I was again, sitting in the street, looking at my own. That's it. The moment came. Phase 1, fixing the rust and getting an MOT. Phase 2, getting the engine rebuilt. Phase 3, replacing brakes and suspension. Not for the MOT. Phase 4, repaint it. It's full of marks, bubbles and rust bits. That needs to go. Phase 5, refreshing the interiors. Get rid of the cracks on the dash, revamp the leathers, maybe get a new head unit. I wanted to get the car back in a state that I would enjoy it. And all of that for £5,000. As if, no, it's impossible. £5,000 are for the first 2 phases, rust and rebuild. I've had a look around, £1,000 is about right for that kind of sill work, and rebuilds come for about 2,600 up. It's possible, I can get this car back on the road with my 5k. So in conclusion, this is not going to be a track car project. I want this car back on the street. I want it back to be my daily drive, a car that I enjoy going to work with and makes me happy at every roundabout. Man, roundabouts are fun. These videos are probably not gonna sponsor this fixing, it's all gonna come out of my pocket, but I still need your support. We need your support. Please like the video, subscribe, and I hope I'll see you at phase 1. Phase 5, yeah, I wish. The ULEZ has expanded and the RX8 can still drive in centre London. I hope the Ministry of Transportation is not watching this, because it's going to ban all diesel and the RX8s.